So this is one of the spreadsheets I've created over the years. It was actually kind of a series of spreadsheets that worked in conjunction. This particular tab had a list of all the different references to those files, different key dates, and basically things that made it so the code wouldn't have to be updated if processes or files changed. And what this did was actually pulled the data on a daily basis, consolidated it, created reports, and basically did all of the analysis for the analyst, as well as keeping track of trends and updating emails. So they'd enter a date there and click pull data, and it would ask them to grab a bunch of reports from an online database that we had access to. It would add all of this data here to this line of business consolidation. And once all that data was in place, it would come back to the tool tab where they had the forecast up here and the actual data down here. And this blank spot, this is where we'd actually have to manually add the staffing data from the vendors that they would send us. It just wasn't part of the database, unfortunately. And so once all of that data was completed, they could click create uh, create summary, and it would create this file right here. And this was basically something that we attached to the email to just basically show them where the data that we were giving them was coming from. And the consolidated tab showed a daily breakout of exactly how the volume happened throughout the day. And so once that was completed, it would update the trend files for them. It would actually automatically open these files, update this on a 6-week trend, move everything over, and show you a graph over here on the right. Shows you the actuals, and then right below that it would show you actual versus trended. And this was kept for every day of the week for 6 weeks at a time. And then the same thing was for handle times. We would basically keep the data 6 weeks. It would automatically shift over, keep the trends. And then once that was completed, it would actually write this section here. It would actually put in these tables, add graphs, and write this section up at the top that would actually tell them what the average handle time was, what the service levels for the day were, what the forecast variance was. All of that was automatically done based off the data that they had pulled from the database. The program was able to calculate all of this and basically write it for you. All you had to do was copy and paste into an email and send it off to the distribution list. Obviously, a huge time saver for the analysts that had to do this on a daily basis because there were so many reports to consolidate. This one here was a smaller file, but still very useful. It allowed us to keep track of the old schedule versus new schedule changes for our lines of business. So, like, there was a person on the old schedule, not on the new schedule. I can show you how this works first. We'll delete that, and you hit compare, and it shows you anybody, like I said, not on the old, or on the old but not on the new, or anybody on the new but not on the old. So we would investigate to see, did they leave the company, did they transfer to another team, go on extended leave, hire somebody new. This was a way for us to keep track of attrition and know the exact head count that we had for our teams. And this one here, probably the most advanced spreadsheet that I ever had to create. They basically wanted everything I had ever done in one spreadsheet. So this was the forecasting, tracking of actual data, and trending, everything for the Spanish lines of business across the entire country. So this one here showed the call volume, the staffing that we had, the expected staffing, the actual staff that we had on hand, the required staff that we would need, and any deficit. And then when we saw these large deficits start to happen, that would be when we'd start a new class, hiring new people to get back to the zero level. And you could view this on a weekly or a daily basis by clicking those buttons there. And this here is actually how the staffing forecast was done. It was off an Erlang calculation, which is something used in call centers. And we had the ability to adjust our occupancy right here, or adjust the forecast accuracy, or and basically once that was done, it would automatically update these formulas down here. This here was the daily actual data. It was tracked automatically. You would just click an update button and it'd pull it in. And this here was daily answered and abandoned. Also tracked automatically, just click it and pull it in. The daily forecast, like I said, was also housed here. It showed exactly what we expected on a daily basis for each different region. I rolled that up into a weekly number for us, and we could actually look at whether or not we wanted just a forecast or the entire view. There was a drop down over here on the left, and this was actually an ActiveX control that ran that one. And that was basically the same across all these tabs. It rolls up into daily, weekly, and monthlies. Just the forecast or all the data at once. This here was a forecast history, the actual forecast we were running off of. This was a way that we could actually adjust the forecast, redistribute it across weeks if we felt that there was to be a heavier week in the month. This here was something of my own design. It basically allowed us to, or I shouldn't say allowed us, it allowed me to figure out how to determine what the starting day of the month would be, whether it be a Monday or Sunday, how many how many weeks there would be in the month, whether or not there'd be a week with a remainder of 3 days. All of this was extremely important to having an accurate forecast, and we had hundreds, if not thousands, of people that we were managing. So, there were millions of dollars at stake. And basically, this here was the guts behind how it broke out the forecast on a weekly and daily basis, and showed you the percentages that were expected for each region, and then actually gave you the breakdown right here. And I mean, this file just went on and on and on. It went on to the forecast and the trends, and yeah, it like I said, it was huge, and it was something I was extremely proud of, honestly. And this here was another portion of how the forecast was broken down and eventually rolled up into those other tabs that I had shown you before. So now we're going to move on to an Access database that I'd been working on. This is an unfinished version of it. It was the only thing I had left on my personal computer when I was making this video. But give you an example of how it worked here. It was an email tracking database. Basically, it allowed them to enter all the emails that they had been receiving from the different advisors, and there was a list of exclusions, the words that might automatically be flagged for review, or something called a whitelist. It was an email that no matter what it said, if it went to that email address, it was okay. So they could enter all that information in here, and give you an example of how this works here. We'll go back to one of these older records. As you can see, this was a test entry. Remove this stuff here just to show you how it basically made the user do things correctly. So if they tried to send it to the supervisor, it'd say, sorry, you haven't entered comments. So you enter the comments, it's the test comment, try to send it to supervision again, and it's going to tell you, sorry, you haven't said whether or not it's an exclusion or a whitelist. So this is already clicked, but I'll go ahead and click it again here, and you can see it automatically fills in exclusion. But if you had checked whitelist and you put something in exclusion, it would have popped up again and said, sorry, this looks like it should have been an exclusion. Please check your entry. So once you've sent that, it goes off to the supervision queue for them to work with. And then just to show you how this up here works, it was basically a feature they asked for me to be able to give them a way to search all the different whitelist options or all the different exclusions. They could type in anything they want, and anything that has that within its text is going to show up. So like right here, I type in @SAI, and there's only one email that has that, and so that's what shows up. On the other side, I typed in PIN. Obviously, there's dozens of things that have PIN in it. So we'll go ahead and show you how the supervision queue works now. They would actually be able to open this by a hidden key command. They would, I believe it was Control-Shift-S, and it would automatically open this. Pull up that record I just sent, and you can see the information that I had added. And then the person from supervision, it was actually set up so that it would automatically identify them in the end, so they wouldn't have to select their name from this list. And this date over here would automatically fill in with today's date, so they wouldn't have to do that from a drop down either. And then they would just enter their comments about it and say whether or not they denied it or send it on to compliance. And compliance basically had a very similar form to this, where they would be able to review what supervision had said, what the original submission details were, and do final approval or denial. So, like I said, this is just some of the things that I've done. It's by no means a complete list, but I think it gives you a good example of what I'm capable of and how useful these types of skills can be for a company. And here I'm going to show you also how the guts behind all of this works, because obviously without seeing the code, you really have no idea what I'm capable of. There we go. So this is some of the codes and modules that are sorry, the different forms and sheets that actually run this database. And then as far as the Excel documents, make this a little bit bigger so you can get a better view of things. And like I said, there was a ton of sheets in that Erlang document. And here's the modules. Also quite a few of them, pages and pages of code. This here was a Erlang function that I had to add so that anybody that downloaded this file from an email would be able to use it without any loss of functionality. And yeah, I tried to name all of my modules so it's easy to keep track of exactly what they did. Add comments where necessary. And yeah, it's like I said, page after page of code. So now I'll go ahead and show you how this other digital daily care, the tool itself, how that was ran. There's actually forms and modules in this one. Each of these forms is identical but needed for a different purpose. But so I can create the custom forms, I can create the custom modules, I can basically do anything you need within Excel or Access. And again, it's just page after page of code, declaring what the different things are when it's necessary to avoid confusion. It's something I've become very, very skilled at over time, and I think it's a skill that would be extremely useful to most businesses. So I think that's pretty much the end of my demonstration, and I very much look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.